Hi, this is Phil Gibbs from OpenMake Software, and welcome to a new installment in the series called How to Do Cool Things with DeployHub. And in this episode, I'd like to talk about change request tracking and release planning. For those of you with the open source version, some bad news to get out of the way up front. This is not available in the open source version of DeployHub. This is only available in the Pro version. But if you need help planning your releases, the chances are you're an enterprise anyway, rather than an individual team, and so DeployHub Pro is probably the better tool for you. Anyway, having got that caveat out of the way, what do we mean by change request tracking? Well, DeployHub doesn't have any of its own change request tools. Rather, it integrates with your existing change request tools. So right now, the likes of Jira, Bugzilla, and GitHub. And coming down the line are things like Rational Quality Manager and HP Quality Center. Those kind of tools are coming up in forthcoming releases. However, right now, what this looks like is we have a change request tab that's available on both components and applications. And the change request tab allows you to connect existing change requests, be it defects or enhancements or any of that sort of thing that you're tracking externally, and connect them to either an application or a component. And once you do that, DeployHub then can maintain a link between an individual version of an application or a version of a component, and it can show you the what's currently open and what's closed, and you get a burn down chart that shows you as these things are being added and closed over time. So from an application point of view, you just have to attach the change request record from your external system into DeployHub. What then happens is that DeployHub will poll the external tool periodically, the interval for which you can configure, and essentially it will then work out when things have closed and when they've been reopened, and will draw you this chart here. And this down here gives you a list of all the outstanding change requests that are currently attached to this application. You notice we have a component field. That's because from an application point of view, we can pull together the change requests for the underlying components. So here, this application consists of two components. It consists of the application component and the database component, and we're pulling in the individual change request records that are associated with these components. You'll also notice that the application developer guys are using Jira, and the database team are using GitHub. You can cheerfully mix and match defect tracking tools within a single application. So your database team could be using one tool, your application team, development team could be using another tool. But that doesn't matter. DeployHub will pull that information together and collate it into one single burn down chart for you. Notice that the open and closed status is ascertained by DeployHub. So even though we've got two different tools, it knows from each tool what should be considered an open change request and what should be considered a closed. So we can look at this from an application point of view. We can go and look at the change requests that are outstanding against the database. So we can pull all that information together into one screen, mixing and matching those change request statuses across multiple components. So from an application point of view, you can look at this application and you can see the state of play. You can see what's currently outstanding, how many defects are still open. And in and as of itself, that could be quite useful, especially when you look at the Assigned Environments tab, because the Assigned Environments will tell you when this particular application is due to go into the different test environments, and essentially when it's due to go into production. So we use the calendar entries for that. If I click on there, you can see I've got a calendar entry in this environment that says that IT Guys version 2 is supposed to be going into UAT, or was supposed to be going into UAT on the 12th of October, and it's failed to do so. Right, it's missed that deadline. So if I go back to my application, you'll see that it's gone amber because it's not yet been deployed into that environment and it's actually overdue. And looking at the change request tab, you can see that we've still got an outstanding issue. So looking at it from an application point of view, that gives you a visibility of the state of play on this app and this app's development in isolation. Right? I mean, just this application. What DeployHub Pro gives you then is the ability, obviously, to bundle these applications together into a release. And a release, if we look at a release is basically just a collection of application versions. So when you're planning your release, you can just drag and drop different application versions into the release. So this particular release contains 3 applications: FIS app, something called Game of Life, and version 2 of IT Guides, which we were just looking at. Now, similarly, if I look at the change requests for the release, what this is doing is pulling together all the outstanding change requests for all the applications. And from those applications, those change requests are pulled from their underlying components. So again, this is collating all that information together into one display. So from a release perspective, we now have a burn down chart from our release, and from what it's made up of all our underlying applications. So I can zoom out from there and you can see how things are growing and shrinking over time. And not they're not closing very convincingly at the moment. So again, this is just like looking at an application, only now we're looking at FIS app, Game of Life, and IT Guides version 2. And looking at the number of outstanding defects and those that are closed across the whole release now. That's useful in and of itself, but where this comes in really useful is when we look at the planner, because the planner knows from the individual applications when those applications are due to go into their test environments as well. So remember we had a look at IT Guides 2 and we saw it was overdue to go into UAT, and that's showing up on our release here. But what we're also showing is that FIS app is due to go in on the 20th of October. Game of Life is actually into test. That has not gone amber. You'll notice that one is showing as a warning. That one's actually been deployed. So Game of Life is sitting on test rig 1, and it was successfully deployed when it was supposed to go. So that's not warning us. However, looking over here, we can see that we still have 2 open defects. That could well be as a result of the testing that's going on there. IT Guides 2 is overdue to go into UAT and still has an open change request. And FIS app has still got 5 open change requests and none closed, so it's shown as completely amber. So this tool here gives you the ability to view exactly what is currently open and closed for each application in the release, and also shows you where everything is due, when the things are due to go into their environment. So just clicking on there will take you straight to the calendar. So from here I can view the calendar entry, move it, shuffle things around and to make my release look at least achievable. And if the things are not looking achievable, I could essentially go back and start removing applications from the release. And this would give me that visibility to do so. So this tool not only allows you to visualize what's outstanding at an individual application or component level, but gives you the burn down chart, but also collects all that information into your release. And bearing in mind that DeployHub would then automate the deployment of the release whenever you want, either automatically or on demand. So that's a quick overview of the release planning tool in DeployHub Pro. Hope you found that useful. Thank you very much, and goodbye.